Okay, so we're moving on to our next turn. So we are in turn 3. First thing we're going to do, because we can skip the reinforcements, there aren't any. Leaders and weapons, nothing's changing, so we don't have to worry about that. Smoke counters, there aren't any. Scenario rolls, there are not any. So we have a free rally/bog roll. So you need to roll a 7 or higher, so for the Americans here, for anybody, when you're trying to rally from Shaken as an infantry. So we're going to roll here for the Americans, and we need a 7. Before I roll, I just wanted to mention something here on our player aid. So we do have a rally area here it's on the same side as the terrain chart. So you roll 2d6, you have to roll a 7 or higher to rally your Shaken unit, 9 or higher for broken. Failed rally on a broken, it does improve it to Shaken. So if they were broken, they could at least recover back to Shaken. Now modifiers. In range of a good order leader, they are. Guzman is in the next hex over, so they get a +1 on the roll. Non-vehicle and open terrain. They are in open terrain, so that's going to be a -1. So that basically cancels that out, but they're also elite, so they do get a +1. So they're going to get a +1 on the roll, and they need a 7. And they're going to stay Shaken. We rolled a 2. Worst possible roll. So our +1 gives us still a measly 3. They're going to stay broken. Or Shaken rather, and so we will move on. So what Shaken does, half fire, half move, it basically limits their effectiveness. So things are going to get interesting here in turn number 3, because we do have some Japanese that are about to hit these units probably fairly hard, because Kusanagi has his men here. They're now in a foxhole, so they're actually captured that foxhole position, so they actually get a little bit of a defensive bonus now. Although they are still downhill from Guzman, our Shaken unit over here, which are the 2 that can attack them. So we will undoubtedly, as the Americans, try to take advantage of that and push them back out of there. But it's not it's easier said than done when you're dealing with the Japanese, who are, as earlier mentioned, not possible to shake or break. Okay, so we're going to roll for our initiative now. The Japanese get 11 and the Americans get 10. So the Japanese retain initiative. Now we roll for impulse. Now because of their casualties that they've already taken, the Japanese are going to lose 1 off their roll. So let's roll for them first. So they get, they get 3 dice. Wow, 14. Well, actually, I'm unsure about this. It says +1 impulse die on turn 4. Maybe that's just on turn 4. So let's just leave that like that. I'm not sure. OST vets, you can maybe clarify for me. I'm not 100% sure if that's right or not. But they did roll a 10, so they're still going to get, even with the -1, they get a +2, so it's going to be a +1. They're still going to get 11. So 11 is still pretty dang solid here for them. Now we'll roll for the Americans, who only get to roll 1 die and add 3 to it. So they get a whopping 5. They get 5 impulse points. They are playing defense, but having only 5 impulse points certainly does not help on the defensive side. All right, so let's keep in mind, and I should have used this. Damn it. I should have used this card. All right. I always forget the cards. All right, so should have used that, but I can still use it now that we're up on the hill. He wasn't killed, so maybe on a an actual like lose your unit, because their goal is to destroy the Marines. So I might save that for that. But the Japanese have a mortar attack, so maybe they should drop a mortar on somebody. This is a little bit risky too, depending on who you do it with. Let's just do a mortar attack so you can kind of see it. Now this guy has line of sight to this unit, so maybe that's where we do our mortar attack. So they have a trench, which is going to give them a +2, but that's 1 Marine squad and a medium machine gun in that hex. So let's take a crack at doing a mortar attack with our luck card, which does not cost an impulse point. We get to play this basically for free. So we're going to play it. Now you can see firepower 4, 2, accuracy 4. So the 4, 2 means if they hit the target, it's 4. If they miss and are off target, it's a firepower of 2. So firepower of 4 isn't all that powerful. Obviously, the Marines have a 4. The trench gives them a 2. So they're going to end up being in the -2 column anyway. So let's roll this out and show you exactly how a mortar attack works, which is similar to an artillery attack. It works almost the same way, and it's slightly different. Okay, so disregard all that crap I was just saying about it being different from off-board artillery. This card basically is an off-board artillery mortar attack. So it's mortar. So it's off-board. It's not on-board mortar because we don't have a mortar counter, and I should have realized that, and I had a brain fart. So mortar attack off-board. With the luck card, it's free, as I mentioned. Okay, so the firepower, as I mentioned, it's a 4. The target hex must be in the line of sight of a good order unit. That means someone who's not shaken or broken. We have our good order unit here, 1, 2, 3. He's in line of sight, even though it's nighttime. So again, this doesn't cost us any action. The spotting range, spotting range in this case, it's normally 20 during daylight. It's 3 because of it being nighttime. So we have to place a strike marker in the target hex and roll 1d6 for accuracy. Each type of artillery has an accuracy zone. Each type of artillery has an accuracy number. So their accuracy number on the card is a 4. If you roll that number or higher, the strike is accurate. So we need a 4, 5, or a 6. We rolled a 5. So the strike is accurate. Okay, so since it's accurate, now we would add 1 if they were in range of a leader, but they're not. The closest leader is Sergeant Miyake here. He's 4 hexes away. So we didn't need to add it anyway because we rolled a 5. So now we would roll for our actual attack. So as I mentioned, the attack strength is 4 because it's accurate, and their defense is 4 plus 2, so it's 6. So it's 6, and the firepower is 4. So it's in the -2 column, which isn't a great column for the attacker. But it's a free attack, so why not do it? We can't eliminate them, but we can get some... rolled a 9, so that's actually pretty good. A 9 will potentially break the unit. Okay, so we have to roll for our gut check. So let's roll for our gut check. The gut check number, again, is a 6. They rolled a 4. So, yeah. The luck of the roll is seemingly with the Japanese here. So these guys are broken, which is kind of a big deal. Because it means they cannot fire and they cannot move. And now these sappers can come up. They could come up right here and then drop a satchel charge on them. So why not do that? So we're going to go 1, 2. Now we could cut the wire or make an attempt to cut the wire, but we don't need to because we just broke these guys. So this is a move. We drop a move on here. That costs them 1 impulse point. They're down to 10. And it goes to the Americans. Now they can't fire on them, but they can. But they also might want to fire on Kusanagi, who's kind of more of a challenge here, I suppose, in a way. This is not a good situation for the Marines. Having these guys get broken and these guys be shaken and being unable to rally them. I can try to rally this broken unit, though, actually, now that I think about it. I'm going to spend an impulse point to try to rally these guys. So as I mentioned, you need a 9. They are in range of Guzman, so they will get a +1. They're not in open terrain. Well, they are, but they're in a trench. So I think that counts. So we won't get our -1. They're elite and they are in range of Guzman. So we need a 7. And we get a 6. So that's going to cost them 1 impulse point. They're down to 4. It's now the Japanese turn. So we'll use our fire action here to toss our satchel charge, or our second action to toss our satchel charge in to this hex and attack them. So the way the satchel charge works is pretty straightforward. It's basically a 10 firepower attack, if I remember correctly. I'm just looking at the rule book to confirm. So satchel charges are special in that they attack all units in the target hex equally. Squad firepower not added, but throwing the charge counts as a firing action. Okay, so all units undergo an attack separately using 10 as the firepower. Firepower is always an unmodified 10. Defenders use terrain modifiers. So we know that their defense is a 4, and the trench gives them 2, so that's 6. So it's going to be in the 4 column, which is still really good for the attacker. So we're in the 4 column here. We'll roll our 2 dice. We got a 7. So a 7 in the 4 column is a casualty. So they're going to reduce these guys. So they are reduced, and that's 2 casualty points now on the American side. So these guys are now used, and their satchel charge is gone. All right. So that brings them down to 9 impulse points. We go back to the Americans. And let's try to rally these guys again. So we still need a 7. And we got a 9. So they are now back to normal, so to speak. So I actually forgot this before, but after the failed rally attempt on my previous impulse, that should have been flipped to shaken. So they would have recovered from shaken anyway with that 9, which also is unmodified, would still have been good enough to recover from broken anyway. And that does not count as a move or fire action, but it does count obviously as an impulse spent. So that is 3. They're down to 3 now. And we go back to the Japanese. So they have 9 impulse points left, and if and when we get to turn 2, maybe then I'll do the Banzai charge so you can see it, or maybe I'll just save that for the second video. I'm not sure I'm going to play this entire scenario out, only because it's going to take a while, and because this is more of a training type, like instructional, so to speak, just to kind of show the way play works. I'm not sure that I want to go, an hour and a half or whatever it might take to actually play the whole thing out. So they're at 9 impulse points left, and let's see, what do we want to do now? Okay, so let's say Lieutenant Kusanagi is going to move up in here and attempt another melee. Now, as soon as he moves, I believe we can still do opportunity fire on him before he gets into that hex, because he's announced his move. We can try to check it by firing on them with Guzman and his Marine squad. And then we can have this guy, because he's adjacent, he can join in with his half firepower. So his half firepower that's 4, which would become a 2. And then on this side we get a 5. So that's going to be 7 firepower. And they, for defense purposes, will have a 3, because we're going to attack the top stack again. So that is 7 minus 3 is 4. Let's look at, so here we have, actually it becomes an 8. Oh, I forgot to add 2 to the melee firepower, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did forget to do that. They are in kunai. So the kunai gives them a terrain bonus of +1. So their defense is a 4, and the Americans' firepower is a 4 as well. And we do have we have an attached leader and a height advantage, so we're going to get +2. Yeah, +2, and I also forgot to apply the minus, the +1 for the. Yeah, I screwed up that assault, kind of big time. Yeah. So I, as always, I should always put this disclaimer. I do make mistakes, obviously, and people point them out, which is all good. So, yeah, going forward, the idea is to learn, right? So I'll get better, and hopefully you guys will get better by watching what I do, and when I screw it up, hopefully that provides a lesson for you as well. So anyway, we're gonna get some modifiers here. So our firepower is 5 plus 2 is 7, and we add 1 for the adjacent target to make it 8. And then we're going to get a plus 2 on the roll. Now their defense is a 3 plus 1 for being in kunai is 4. So we're in the 4 column. We're in the 4 column, and we get a plus 2 on the roll. So let's roll our attack here. Rolled a 3. So the Americans continue to roll terribly. So we're in the 4 column. A 3 plus 2 is 5, which would be broken, but you can't break the Japanese. So no impact. Both of these guys get fired, and that costs the Americans 2 impulse points for a group fire. So they're down to 1. And now the Japanese can continue their movement. So they're going to get a moved marker. And we are going to have another melee attempt here. And that doesn't go there. It goes here. Okay. So once again, when we get to the end of the turn, that will be that. That costs them 2 impulse points. So they're down to 7. The Americans are now at 1. They are at 1. Let's have these Marines fire at our sapper here. Why not? So they are reduced. Their firepower is a 3, but they get 3 for the machine gun. So that's 6. They're firing at the sapper, who has a defense of 3. So we're in the 3 column as a base. Okay, but there are going to be some modifiers on here. So their firepower of 6 will become a 7 because they're adjacent. And they will get, they don't get the attached leader, but they do get the height advantage. So it's going to be 7 on 3. Palms give them a defense of 1. So it's 7 to 4. So it's still 3 column. It's 3 column, and we get a plus 1 on the roll. So it's a 6 plus 1 is 7. 7 in the 3 column is a casualty. So they did inflict a casualty, and that moves the Japanese casualties up to 8, I believe. Yes, 8. So they have 8 casualty points, and that means that, actually, is it 8? 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's 9. So they're only 1 casualty point from taking 2, -2 on their impulse points. And these guys get fired. That's the last American impulse point, so they're done. Which frees the Japanese up to get up to some chicanery here. So we have Sergeant Inoue here with 2 rifle squads and a satchel charge. We're in the jungle. We're going to move here, so he can do that. That costs 3. That's it. Their move is done. So we're going to drop a moved on here. That was a group move, so that costs 2, moves them down to 5. Now they're going to fire by tossing the satchel charge into this American position. So again, we have our satchel down here. It's a 10. Nothing else matters from the Japanese standpoint. They're going to go to used. Now, technically, one will be used and the other one would have a fire attack left. So maybe I should try to distinguish that. So we'll say this rifle squad threw the satchel charge, and they're used. And these guys still actually have a... they've only moved. So let's do that. Let's do that. Now, we got the 10-point satchel charge attack. The Marines' defense is a 4. They also have a satchel charge. And they're in foxholes, so it's a 5. So it's 10 to 5. 10 to 5. We're in the 5 column, which is pretty bad for the Americans here, once again. We rolled an 8. So firepower is unmodified. Actually, they get a -1 for the height disadvantage. And they do have an attached leader that kind of, well, they don't. I use the other unit to attack. So they do get the -1. So it's 8 -1 is a 7. In the 5 column, a 7 is casualty and shaken. So the Marine unit on top takes a casualty. That is 3 casualties now for the Americans. And we roll our gut check, which we know is a 6. And we got a 6, so no shaking. So we're going to fire on here. We'll attack the same reduced unit. So we got Inoue. Their firepower is a 3. Their defense is a 4. Plus it's uphill. So the firepower modifiers, they'll get 1, a +1 to make it a 4. Then for modifiers, they're going to lose 1 because they moved, so it's moving fire. Which actually, I forgot to apply that to the satchel, I believe, which would have been a -2, which would have set them to broken and not casualty. So I'm going to flip this back over because they actually did not take a casualty there because I forgot to apply the -1 for moving fire. So now that he's firing, we're going to have the firepower is 4, the defense is 4, so that's a wash. We're in the 0 column. But we're going to take a -1 for moving fire and a -1 for height disadvantage. So it's a 7, -2 in the 0 column is a 5, which is nothing. So no effect. They get a used marker. And that is 1 more impulse. So they're down to 3. The Americans are out of impulse points, so we're down to 3 here. So let's move Miyake up. He's got 2 here. So if we go 1, 2, and they only have 3 movement points. So we'll go here. And we'll drop a moved on here, and that's 2 moves. Two impulse points rather. So they're down to 1. Again, the Americans don't have any. So now, what do we want to do? Do I want to try and move somebody up? Like maybe this guy here will move up. Let's do that. We'll move him here. Move him here. I'm going to drop a moved on him. Now I could have fired at this guy, at Guzman, but I'm going to do a Banzai charge next turn. And we're going to have a whole lot, assuming we don't know what happens here yet, but I mean, even if they fail to, knock them out, the command range of these guys is all going to result in being able to kind of go nuts with a Banzai charge here, and maybe win this for the Japanese. So we are looking at the end of the turn. As far as, all the other stuff prior to the melee. So now we have to do the melee again. So we are in the same kind of situation that we had before, except that they're broken. So I'm going to take the markers off here. So they get half fire. So their half fire is 3 + 1 for the Browning. So it's going to be a 2. Their defense is a 4. And for the Japanese, they get a firepower of 8. And they get a defense of 1 for the lieutenant. +3 is 4. +3 more is 7. +2, +1 rather. So their defense is an 8. So the Americans are in the -4 column. And the -4 column, I should roll. Because if I roll a 12, it's a casualty. So we'll roll against the lieutenant first. Nope. 11, real close. 11 would be a broken, but we can't do that to the Japanese. And then the second rifle squad is a 10. So 2 good rolls, but alas, lack of firepower did them in. Now we'll flip it over to the Japanese side. The American defense is a 4, I believe. Yes, it's a 4. And their attack, again, is 3, 6, 8. So we're in the 4 column. And we do have to adjust it. Anyway. Now, the flip side, the Japanese have 3, 6, 8. +2 is 10. Against the defense of 4. 4. So that's 6. which is the next to the highest column it could be. So that's a 6. Then we get some modifiers for the die roll. So yeah, so their defense is a 4. There's a 10 attack. That's a 6. We get a height disadvantage, so it's a -1. So 6 minus 1 is a 5. We're only attacking 1 unit, and a 5 in this is broken. So we'll roll a gut check for the Americans, and they fail it, so they're broken. Because they're broken, they have to retreat, so they're going to retreat here. Kusanagi and crew can move up into this hex. So that's going to end turn number 3. We'll go to turn 2. So I can show you a Banzai charge, and then I might stop because this has gotten extremely long. So let me clean up here, and then we'll get right back into it. Okay, so let's go through our regular routine here for the, basically start of a new turn. So reinforcements, no. Attach leaders, no. Smoke counters, no. Scenario rolls, no. So free rally. So we're going to roll here. We need a 9. He is in command range of Guzman still. He's 2 hexes away. So he will get a +1 on his roll. So we need an 8. And we got a 6. But by trying to do that, we do move him to a shaken at least. So he's now shaken. Okay, so now we move to initiative roll. Let's roll that. And the Japanese get a 5, the Americans get a 9. So the Americans have initiative this turn, which is useful actually, depending on how they do with their roll for... and they roll a 10 for Japan with a -1, but they get 2 from the scenario rules, so it's an 11. So they start with 11 impulse points, which is good for them. And the Americans only get to roll 1 die. So they roll 1 die and get a +2 on it. They roll a 6, so they actually get 8 impulse points. That's excellent. That is the most they can possibly get, so it's good that they got it here, because we're going to have a Banzai on the first Japanese impulse. Okay, so what do the Americans want to do here? Because this is a rough situation. So we have here. Now I know they're going to Banzai. Can I preempt that by moving into a melee with these guys? I guess I could try. They have... well, we could do the satchel charge attack. That might be useful. Maybe we'll do that. So we're going to use, and I will be using this card probably pretty soon as well. But we do have our satchel charge here, so we're going to throw that into this hex here. So as we know, that's an attack all by itself, and that'll be a fired action for one of the units. It'll be the bottom one, because that was the one that actually had it. So he's going to chuck that in there. We get a 10 firepower attack, and it is against all the units in the hex. So that's useful. That's why it's useful. So there's no real terrain benefit, because they're in open terrain. They're on the same crest line, same elevation. They don't have a leader. So the firepower is unmodified according to the rules. So there's no firepower modification. So it doesn't help that they're adjacent, because they have to be adjacent to use it anyway, etc. So die roll modifiers, really there's none. There's no modifiers, and we're just going to roll. Now, I believe it attacks all units, including the leader, if I remember correctly. Although he may be attacked along with his satchel charges. Let's see. I just read this too. All units. It's probably the same. I'm going to say it's the same as when they are attacked in general. So he's going to be attacked along with the rifle squad to which he is attached, which has a 7 defense, a 3 defense rather. So it's going to be a +7 attack, which is really powerful. So let me pull out my card here. So really we need an 8 or better. And we get an 11. So that's an elimination of the rifle squad, which actually pushes the Japanese. Wait, I did roll and I forgot to adjust it for their impulse points. Let me think about. Oh wait, I did adjust it. I need to roll to see if Kusanagi is killed. So you roll for this casualty. A roll of 1 will kill him. So we'll roll Japanese die. It's a 2. So Kusanagi is not killed. Where did I put his counter? Right here. Okay, so he's still there. The one rifle squad is gone now. So we'll attack the other rifle squad now. Same thing. It's a 7. And a 5 in the 7 column is a casualty. So they get reduced. So that actually was really effective. That cost me 1 impulse. So the US is down to 7. Now it is Banzai time. Okay, so Kusanagi here is going to Banzai. It's got a range of 3. So everybody within 3 can be activated. And then the other commander's range can also be activated. So you can kind of chain it together. So here's how this is going to work. So his hex will get a Banzai. Where are my Banzai counters? They're over there. All right. So Banzai. Now his range is 3. So everybody within 3, he's within 3, he gets a Banzai. He's within 3, he gets a Banzai. He's also within 3, 1, 2, 3, he gets a Banzai. Now this guy, his command range is a 2, I believe. Yep, 1, 2. Banzai. The only one who's not involved are these guys and these guys up here. 1, 2, 3, also Banzai. Okay, so Banzai rules are really interesting. So it says a Banzai charge is a free-flowing mass or free-flowing move of Japanese units closing with the enemy and entering into melee. On an individual level, it's basically a movement action merged with an assault move. All units in the Banzai charge will follow these mechanics. Units can move up to its full allotment of movement points, and then as part of the same action, assault move into an enemy-occupied hex. Normal terrain cost applied to movement. A melee marker is placed immediately. All right, so these guys are going to attack here. And what's these? So these are attacking here. He's attacking here. These are attacking here. And he's attacking here. So all the American positions are going to be hit. Now they can move their movement, which is 3. So they'll have to go through the wire, I think. Because this is actually, they can't. Because that's already 2 units attacking here. There's 1 unit attacking here, but they can't get there. Because they go 1, 2, 3. So let's just do this. We'll put him here. And turn this over to the moved side to indicate that he's moved, but he's not going to be involved in the attack. Same thing here. They have a movement of 3. They can go 2, or they can go 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we'll go here and turn this to the moved side. And everybody else is attacking. Okay, so a melee marker is placed immediately. Unit can move into a hex with a melee marker already placed following stacking limits. Melee hexes are locked out after all units in Banzai attack have acted. Melees then resolved normally in melee phase. Unit must seek to close with the nearest enemy. All right, so we did all that. That actually cost the Japanese 2 impulse points, leaving them with 9. And we go back to the American side. Now, because they're all locked in melee, they don't really have the opportunity to act, I don't think. I think that freezes everything, essentially. So the Americans are going to have to pass, which was kind of why it was important for them to get initiative, because once you're locked in melee, I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to act anymore. So, for the sake of time, let's just say these guys are going to move 1, 2, 3, and we'll drop a moved marker on them. These guys will move 1, 2, 3, and I'll drop a moved marker on them. And what I forgot to do was opportunity fire. So anybody who moved, I could have attacked via opportunity fire with the Americans. Again, for the sake of time, and because this is more of an instructional thing, I'm going to skip the fact that I could have opportunity fired on some of these guys that were coming in for the Banzai charge. And we're just going to do the Banzai charge. So we're just going to skip to the end of the turn, and we're going to resolve some of this melee. And really, by now, you probably know how all this works. So let's just resolve. We'll resolve them just for the sake of, of doing so. So again, we have a melee here. It's a Banzai charge. He's got an attack of 3. They have a defense of 4. Plus 2 is 6. So that's going to be a -3 on the Japanese side, with a die roll modifier of a height disadvantage of -1. Their firepower is actually a 5. Sorry. So it's 5 against 6. So that's a -1 column. They get a -1 for height disadvantage and a +1. Yeah, so no, just a -1. So we're going to roll here, and they're not really... They rolled an 11, which gets modified down to a 10, which is a casualty and a shaken. The casualty is good enough to eliminate this unit, and now you roll on the... you roll against the crude weapon here as well. And that's a 7 -1 becomes a 6, and a 6 is nothing. Okay, so... They can't advance, so they're just going to get the Banzai charge. I'm going to put it to moved, just to indicate that it's done, because the Banzai carries over. So it would carry over to turn 1, and we'll just resolve it there. So now let's do this guy. So we know he's shaken, so he's half firepower. I wonder if I could have used an impulse to try to rally him. I'm just going to play it that he's still shaken, because again, I'm more interested in showing the Banzai mechanic than anything else here. So we know his firepower is a 4, gets half to a 2. And then on this side, they have a 3 plus 2 is 5. So it's their firepower is a 5. Their defense here is a 4. So 5 to 4 is a 1. I also didn't do the attack back on them, so I screwed that up. Let me finish that out. Because the Americans obviously got to defend themselves, they were reduced, so their firepower is a 3, plus 3 is 6. Their defense is a 3. So that's 3 column, and they get a couple of... actually, no, it's 6 plus 2 is 8. So it's 8 against 3, which is 5. So we're in the 5 column. And we get some modifiers. We get a height advantage modifier of +1 and an elite unit of +1 as well. So, yeah, so we're in the 5 column. So that, a 10 plus 2 is 12. That's actually going to eliminate these guys. So they're done. They're definitely a -2 on their impulse now as well. All right, so back to this one now. Yeah, so they have let's do the American attack first. So we know their firepower is 6 plus 2 is 8. The Japanese defense is 1, 4. It's 4. So 8 to 4 is a firepower of 4. There's no height advantage. There's no attached leader. They are elite, so they do get a +1. So in the 4 column, an 8 becomes a 9. A 9 is casualty. Casualty and broken, but they can't be broken. So when you roll a casualty on a leader, because that would have been against the leader, in melee. Let me check this real quick. Yes, Kusanagi is killed, so let's roll for the unit now. So we're in the same column, 4, and we get a +1 for the elite status of our unit. And then actually a -1 for Shaken, I think. So 7 is casualty. So that will actually kill them as well. And now we have our light machine gun actually is going to end up being abandoned there because it's not a crude weapon, it's an attached weapon. So now we have to do their attack on the Americans. They get a firepower of 2 + 2 is 4. And the Americans' defense is, I believe, 4. So they did have an attached leader, so they're going to get a +1. Yeah, they're going to get a +1. So it's in the 0 column with a +1, and they get a 6, which becomes a 7, which is shaken. They're already shaken, so we roll for the gut check, and if they fail it, they become broken. And they rolled an 8, so they are not shaken. But Kusanagi and that unit are both killed. So far the Banzai charge is not working out all that well for the Japanese here. So let's do this one now. So this one is going to be a little bit more interesting. Remove this because we're not going to need it after this anyway. So their firepower is going to be 10. And their defense is 8 + 1 is 9. So a 10 and a 9 for the Americans. The Japanese have a firepower of 6 and a defense of 7. So 6 and 7 for the Japanese and 10 and 8 for the Americans. Nope, 10 and 9 for the Americans. Okay, so 10 against, what did I say, 6? 7. 10 against 7 is a 3. There is a height advantage as well. There is no attached leader. And they get a +1 for that. So they're going to get a +2 because they're elite. It's elite plus height advantage. So 3 column +2. They rolled a 5. 3 column +2 is 7. That would be a casualty. So Sergeant Inoue is going to be killed as well. Now we'll roll the rifle squad. An 8 + 2 is a 10 in the 3 column. That is an elimination. So the rifle unit is killed. This is why Banzai charges, even though they were terrifying, they really couldn't stand up against the Marine firepower all that well. And a 5 + 2 is going to be a casualty. So this guy is going to get reduced. So we'll do that. And his Banzai charge will stay. Let me slap a moved on there. Now their firepower against the American defense of 9. It was a 6 against 9. So that's a -3 column. And we'll roll here against the top Marine unit. And got a 9. They get a +1 for the attached leader, so that becomes a 10. They lose 1 for the height disadvantage, so it's a 9. So -3, a 9 is possibly shaken. So let's roll for the gut check. And that's good, not shaken. So now let's do the second unit, a 5. And the -3 is nothing. So that melee is done. These guys are done. They're done. This is the last one to do here. So melee. So we have Guzman. So their firepower is 5. And they get a they get 2, 5 and 6. The defense is 6. They get 1 for the sergeant and 1 for the cover. So it's 5 firepower, 6 attack, +2 is 8, actually. 8. And I think I forgot to do that down here. It's hard for me I need to write it all down or something because I keep screwing it up. Their defense is going to be 1, 4, 7. And their attack is going to be 2, 5, 8, 10. So they're a 10 against a 6. So that's a +4 attack. So let's just do the Japanese attack first. So +4 against Guzman. So that's going to be 9 in the 4 column. 9 in the 4 column. What do they get for an adjustment? They get a height disadvantage, which is -1. But they do have an attached leader, which is a +1. So they get it's unmodified. So it's 9 in the 4 column. 9 in the 4 column is going to be casualty and broken. So we're going to take Guzman out. I think you're supposed to roll, though. And I haven't been doing it. So let's just roll. But he could be broken as well. So let's roll for the gut check. And he is broken. Or it's casualty and broken or shaken? Broken. Yeah, so he's broken. Now let's do the Marines underneath him. 7 in the 4 column is a casualty. All right. Now on their side, we had a firepower of 5 against a defense of 1, 4, 7. So 4, right? It was firepower is 5 plus 2. 7 and 7. So it's a 0 column. 0 column, +1 for the attached leader, +1 for the height advantage, +1 for elite. So we're in the 0 column, but we get a +3 on the roll. We rolled an 8 plus 3 is an 11 in the 0 column. That is a X. That's an elimination. So he is dead as well. Now we'll do the rifle squad. A 9 plus 3 is a 12. Eliminated. And finally, a 9 plus 3 is a 12. Eliminated. So those Banzai charges really did not do much good for them. So that's going to end that, right? So that's the end of the turn. Essentially, we would go in, remove our markers. So these markers will go away. We move to turn 1, which is the last turn, although there is the possibility of having an extended turn. This has gotten extremely long, way longer than I wanted it to be, but we did go through basically the entirety of the mechanics, even though I screwed some of it up. I know for a fact I forgot the +2 a couple times for firepower. There's just I think part of this, because I don't do this when I play it, just playing it. And I'm not talking and doing video. I think it's like walking and chewing gum. I don't always plug everything together. So hopefully you understand how Banzai works. This would carry over to the next turn. We would flip these back to Banzai. I just left them on move to indicate that I had already done those guys. Right? So, they took a beating. I probably screwed up on the leader casualties too, because if it's a C, I think you check. If it's an X and they're destroyed, you pull it out. Or I think you're supposed to roll either way. So when a unit is destroyed, you roll 1, 3, although it says they're attacked directly. If they're attacked directly, I would think a casualty would kill them. So I need to clarify that for my own benefit and so on. I didn't even have to use this card because nobody got eliminated. Well, actually, that's not true. This guy did get eliminated, and I guess I could have saved him with this card. But I didn't use it, so it's fine. But that's going to wrap it up. I'm sorry this got so long. Hopefully, if you did make it all the way through, or you just jumped to the chapter on the Banzai charge or whatever, you got something out of this. That's my hope anyway. I appreciate you watching. I know this was long. Thank you very much for checking it out. Hopefully it was useful. I'm gonna sign off now. My name's Joe. This has been Hexed Encountered. And as usual, please like, share, subscribe, etc., etc. And until next time, happy gaming.